It's a southern Indiana destination that many flock to for sightseeing and entertainment. The French Lick and West Baden Resort offers visitors the chance to step back in time. And recently, a crew has uncovered a hidden gem that's now giving the community another glimpse into the past. News director Shalina Barker and photojournalist Paige Easley give us an up-close look at how the resort is working to bring this piece of history back to life.
Justin Harris is the director of facilities at the French Lick Resort in Orange County. As part of his job, Harris oversees the maintenance of all of the buildings, including the French Lick Resort and Casino, as well as the West Baden Springs Hotel.
You know, we've got multiple projects going on in this area. So we had the drainage project. We're also working on the restoration of the bowling and billiard pavilion in the Sunken Gardens area, and we needed some soil for that.
To help with this project, crews started digging up soil when they found something unusual underneath, the remnants of an old pathway. Curious, Harris went up the chain of command for permission to keep digging. Chuck Franz is the vice president of French Lick Resort's parent company, Cook Group.
After hitting that, Justin came to me and said, "We've hit this, what do you think it is?" Took him to my office, showed him historic aerials, and turned him loose and said, "If you'd like to uncover it, go for it." Not knowing ever that they'd hit what they hit.
What they hit was the old Neptune spring, which was built in 1892. A spring is a place where water moving underground finds an opening to the surface, sometimes in a continuous flow. In early times, they were sometimes the only source of fresh water a community had.
In the early days, this was a location where buffalo, deer, a lot of wildlife would gather, and they would lick the minerals from the ground, specifically out of the water. And it became known as a place for good hunting grounds, and so the Native Americans would be in this area. Eventually there was a fort, a munitions dump here. So people have been coming to this area because of the mineral water.
The spring was one of 4 mineral springs on the West Baden Hotel property. People from around the country flocked to the area for its medicinal properties. Old photographs show a 30-foot-tall wooden structure surrounded the spring, which was topped off by a dome, giving travelers to the area a nice spot to stop and visit.
It's just been a hot spot for people and animals for a long time. And that's what attracted people into this area originally. When Indiana became a state, this portion of Orange County was the only portion of Orange County that wasn't sold at public auction, surveyed off and sold. And that's because the federal government wanted to mine the minerals from this area.
The Neptune spring was no longer in use by the 1910s. Most of the other springs on the property were capped, but to Harris's surprise, this spring is still active.
When we pulled the concrete out of the spring, that was the path of least resistance. So it actually restored the flows back to the spring in the original location, which is really cool. It's the only active original spring to the West Baden property.
While Harris and his team hope they're able to restore the spring to its former glory, they have another issue to deal with. That's figuring out how the initial spring was able to drain.
I don't know how they did it, but the original Sprudel House was an area that our guests could come to and sample the waters from all of the springs. So that water had to get pumped into that area, into the Sprudel House for the sampling. And I don't know if they also pumped, we found a 4-inch clay tile that exited that basin. I don't know how it worked yet. It doesn't currently work, but when we took some elevations, it doesn't want to flow by gravity into the creek.
He's also trying to figure out how to go about restoring the spring while keeping the history intact. Harris, who is also a licensed engineer, is currently working on the problem.
The people back in the 1800s were craftsmen, and they did a lot of work that is very difficult for us to replicate without getting too much technology involved, and then you kind of lose the historic nature of what it was, and the cost of doing that would be significant.
Harris says right now crews are working on this project while juggling several others, which is why there is no set timeline for when this project could be complete. He does say complete restoration of the spring would probably cost tens of thousands of dollars. While Harris and others say they don't quite know what the future holds for the spring, being a part of uncovering history has been a great feeling.
It's really a wonderful thing to be involved in this and to see part of history come back to life. I absolutely love the history of this area. I'm a native of French Lick. I've grown up on these grounds in all of the various states that it's been in until the restoration. And knowing of things but not knowing what remains that was my childhood. Now I get to be a part of actually rediscovering what was here 100 years ago.
You're a part of history. There's not a lot of things that go back that far, so it's just really cool to be able to come down and work on a project that is the resort, number one, and try to revitalize it, bring back the history for all of our guests that are coming here. It's just really cool.
For folks at the West Baden Springs Hotel, this discovery has breathed new interest in the area's past, with hopes to further unveil what lies beneath. Reporting for First City Focus, I'm Shalina Barker.
Historical pictures and other documents have led crews to believe there is more hidden underneath the soil of the West Baden Springs Hotel grounds. At one point, the grounds also housed a bicycle track and a baseball field where Major League Baseball teams, like the Cubs, came to practice during spring training. To learn more about the French Lick Resort and the Neptune Spring, visit our website, vincentspbs.org.